to be the same for everybody.
Are we just going to look at each other?
You can look up at the. Hi, welcome to Politics Knoxville. I'm State Representative Stacey Campfield, and I'm doing a four-part series with Republican candidates for governor. My guest today is Bill Gibbons. Bill, how are you?
Stacey, good to be with you.
Thanks for coming on the show. If you could, I'm keeping to the same format. Tell us a little bit about yourself, why you're running for governor.
Well, okay, right now I serve as district attorney in Shelby County, which is the state's largest jurisdiction, and in that capacity I'm the state's chief law enforcement officer in the state's largest jurisdiction. I've been in that position now for 12 and a half years. It's a tough job. I enjoy it every day, but I think it's prepared me to be the kind of governor that our state needs. Prior to that, I was in private law practice, served a term on the Memphis City Council, served on the County Commission, and prior to that, I served on Governor Lamar Alexander's staff. So I think when you look at my entire professional career, I'm ready to hit the ground running on day one, so to speak, in being governor of our state. I also know what I want to do when I get there. I know what my priorities are. I've given a lot of thought to this. I'm not running just for the sake of running. I want to be a governor who goes to work every day focused on making sure that Tennessee is a state where we have job growth, good schools, and safe communities. Those are the three priorities that I'm going to have as governor. So I know what I want to do when I get into office, and I'm prepared to do the job. I can hit the ground running on day one.
Well, great. Well, let's hit you on some of the issues and
Okay.
see where you stand on some of the issues and prioritize and things like that. Taxes and fees right off the bat.
Very good.
Do you now or have you ever supported an income tax? Or would you in the future support an income
I'm
tax?
glad you asked that. If the General Assembly should pass an income tax bill, I will veto it the minute it hits my desk.
Okay.
I think it is an anti-growth measure. All you have to do is look at the state of California to see what happens when you have a high-tax state. Businesses are leaving California in droves. And it's an advantage to Tennessee to have relatively low taxes, and we need to keep it that way.
Okay. Would you support any increase on the tax on food?
No, I'm against any I'm against any across-the-board tax increase such as that. Again, that goes back to making sure we continue to be a low-tax state.
Okay. Toll roads is an issue that's started to grow a little bit. Some people support them, some people don't. How would you feel about that?
That is something I'm willing to take a look at. I do think that we need to take a look at making sure that certain fees, so to speak, cover particular services. Now, a good example of that is our gas tax right now, which
that was my next question.
Which I think needs to be dedicated to transportation.
Okay.
One thing that Governor Bredesen did in his first term was raid that gas tax fund and use some of that money for other purposes. I think that fund ought to be dedicated to transportation. But in terms of toll roads, that might be a possible source of dedicated funds to transportation as well. I'm open to it. I'm willing to look at it.
Okay. You talked about the gas tax. Right now, it is a set price per gallon.
Mm-hmm.
Some people say, hey, it should be a set price per dollar value of the whatever it costs for a gallon of gas,
right.
Because obviously cost of paving material increases when the cost of oil goes up. Would you be in support of adjusting, changing from a set price to a variable price?
Well, right now I really tend to favor the set price. A number of people have proposed that to me. I'm not going to totally rule it out, but I think that the set price we have right now is probably the best option.
Would you support any state fee or statewide property tax?
I do not support a statewide property tax, no. I do not support any across-the-board increase in state taxes.
Okay, guns, very important issue to Second Amendment people.
Yeah. We're going through a lot of questions here really fast.
We're trying. This is perfect.
Okay.
This is what I'm looking to do. Guns, legally permanent gun holders in state parks. Do you favor allowing them to stay in state parks, being able to carry in state parks?
I'll put it this way. I think in terms of legislation that would allow permit carriers to carry their firearms in state parks, I don't have any problem with that. If I were governor and that passed the legislature, I would sign that bill.
Okay. In local parks?
Local parks, I think that ought to be a local decision. I think if the city of Knoxville wants to allow permit carriers to carry their firearms into parks, that should be a decision by the city of Knoxville.
Would you support it being an opt-in issue or an opt-out issue?
Oh, you could do it either way, but I think the main thing is that final decision-making authority rests with that local community. And of course, there are two ways of doing it. And I don't have any preference as to whether you opt in or opt out, as long as that final decision is up to that local community.
Okay. How about legally permitted gun holders in restaurants that serve?
We're going through a lot of them here. As district attorney in Shelby County, in the experiences that I have had, I do have some concern about that. Frankly, I could go through, we don't have time during this program unless you want me to, but I could go through specific examples of cases we've had to prosecute involving the unfortunate mixture of guns and alcohol in restaurants. And that concerns me very greatly. So I do have a concern about doing anything that would in any way increase the likelihood of that.
Okay.
Now, having said that, I don't think that allowing permit carriers to take firearms into restaurants that serve alcohol will make any big difference. I'm not one of those in law enforcement who thinks that that we're going to have some terrible situation as a result of that, because I think the vast majority of permit carriers in Tennessee are law-abiding citizens that are going to adhere to the prohibition of consuming alcohol if they're carrying their firearms into restaurants. So I don't see it as a major problem, but I do have some concern that if you do anything that increases the likelihood of that mixture, that's a problem.
Okay.
And I think the answer is, going back to the park situation, to leave it up to that individual restaurant owner as to whether or not that ought to occur. So if a restaurant owner is an owner of private property, does not want firearms on his property, he should have the option of having that prohibition.
Okay, education. As governor, you'll have a great ability to prioritize things, and there are limited dollars. I mean, everybody like to say, I'd like to give more money to everybody, but it's not realistic.
That's right.
There are things we're going to be able to prioritize. As governor, you could do certain different things that maybe help education that maybe don't cost a lot of money. Do you, or would you support school choice for children in failing schools?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's essential that we increase parental choice in the schools that their children attend. And I talk to a lot of parents across the state. And by the way, one of my opponents has made a comment that Tennesseans don't care about public education. I disagree with that. I think Tennesseans care a lot about public education, and they're frustrated. I talk to parents, primarily parents of low-income students, who are frustrated that their kids are trapped in low-performing schools, and we've got to give those parents more options, such as charter schools, for example, to send their kids to.
What about vouchers for private schools?
I like to call them scholarships instead of vouchers, but it's the same concept. I think it's a good idea to, in effect, give every parent a scholarship equal to the average amount spent per pupil, and then allow that parent to use that scholarship and decide what school that student should attend. I think that's a concept that we need to move toward.
Okay. What about the ability of homeschool students to participate in state school functions such as sports? Would you support that?
I can see some merit to that. I'm a firm believer in parents' right to homeschool their children, and I could see some real pluses to giving them an opportunity to participate in sports at various public schools. But I'll go back to what I said earlier. It seems to me that needs to be a local decision, not a state mandate.
Okay. What about one of the big concerns a lot of people have is the teacher tenure system and the ability to get rid of some potentially bad teachers quickly, or allow teachers that maybe want to produce more to do certain things that'll help them produce more, to get, you know, to allow principals to hire and fire pretty much as they see fit to get the best results. Would you support ending teacher tenure, or dramatically adjusting it to say maybe something like putting them under the system where they're more or less thought of as other government employees are?
I think we need some dramatic adjustments, and I'm very much in favor